Hello and welcome to How Would You Rate Your Pain? We will be exploring life, loss, love, and the power of resilience. I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Hello and welcome to another episode of How Would You Rate Your Pain? I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell, and I'm really excited to talk about mental health when it comes to athletes today with Neil Place. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited for this.
So tell us a little bit about what you do and the True Athlete Project.
Yeah, so my role with the True Athlete Project now is head of U.S. programming, which sounds really big.
Yeah, well, the United States is big. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. The True Athlete Project itself is a nonprofit that did start in Chattanooga. The founder and CEO came to UTC to play tennis here, and he had a whole story and experience through sports. So as a kid, he loved tennis, had this great story with it, and then became quite good at it and played in college, and then was kind of riddled with some injuries, some mental health issues that were pretty severe at times. And it led him to kind of create this, what is now called the True Athlete Project, which kind of addresses this gap in sport that can exist. Because sport is supposed to be this amazing, beautiful, fulfilling thing that can teach us a ton of life lessons. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, especially in certain cultures and sports and areas, it doesn't always teach us the right lessons, or we get kind of stuck in certain areas with it. So the True Athlete Project now, he kind of moved back to the UK, has grown it there. It's quite big over there, quite a well-known name. And it's kind of like, let's bring it back here and do that here because, the US, everyone needs this everywhere.
Absolutely.
And I guess I'm kind of talking around what we actually do. But what the True Athlete Project does is address the kind of gap in sport of how we raise athletes, how we raise people, especially young athletes, how we teach them what it means to gain the right lessons from sport and to use sport as a conduit for creating the whole person and focusing on mental health and well-being and integrating kind of life skills.
Yeah. Well, it seems like so many times parents want to put their kids in sports to learn how to practice and how to be part of a team and to have fun and make friends. And then it seems like the more, at least from clients I've seen, the more competitive it gets and the more you kind of hone your skills and the farther you get into, things that are that competitive, it can move away from remembering to have fun and to learn lessons and to build the person, not just the skills. It's
funny that becomes like a big part of our job is like just remembering the joy of sport. Like, hey, this is supposed to be fun. Like, remember that?
Yeah.
It depends on what age we're going into. With the littles, it's pretty easy. It's like, hey, why do you guys play this sports? Because it's fun. We like to hang out with our friends.
I like hitting balls.
Yeah. And then when we get a little bit older, maybe in high school, college, and even above that, we kind of have to help remind them, like, hey, why did you start playing sport? It's like, because it was fun and I liked hanging out with my friends. Okay, like, why do you do it now?
Yeah.
And if that reason is different, does that still align with who you are and your values and what it is that you hope to gain from this? Are you here for not just the right reasons, but are you, using your time in a way that, like, feels good because you're spending a lot of time on this thing? So.
Well, and that must be hard, too, as they get into, like, high school and they're trying to, like, it has monetary, like, components to it that you move into when it comes to college sports and then, professional sports. And if you have, families that need that or that would be helpful, like it just feels like it would place that obligation, and extra, maybe moving away from that true love and, the fun.
The money factor, as it does with many things, really, really muddles things sometimes. And how I work around that, I think how we all kind of work around that is where that becomes an issue is more with the people making the decisions about us getting in and doing the work.
Yeah.
But once we do the work, that isn't a conversation at all. Like once we get in and start to do like a mindfulness check-in, some sort of like, hey, just check in with your teammate, see who they are and how they're doing, check in with your body, check in with your thoughts and feelings and how maybe they're directing and guiding you at the moment going into practice or competition.
Yeah.
There's no other, no other factor. Sport really matters at that point. It becomes very human.
Yeah.
And every time they get it, once we actually do the facilitation, like no matter the age, they're like, oh, I get this. This makes sense.
That makes so much sense because that's exactly what I was thinking as you were talking is like, bringing back the humanity And it's so easy for us to dehumanize not just people we don't like, but also our heroes. And I think we see that a lot in like the news and like on online forums where like, somebody doesn't catch a pass or, something's happening in their personal life and people will say things, in those online spaces that they would never say to somebody they cared about's face, and yet, we expect people to, because they're getting paid a lot, maybe as professional athletes or whatever, to not be human and not cry and not get disappointed or have a bad day. And so I love that, like, you're giving them that self-compassion with themselves to just be like, yeah, I play a sport, but I'm a person.
Yeah. The compassion piece is actually one of the biggest pieces of what we do. And there is so many facets of compassion for others, compassion for your opponent, but compassion for self is like probably the hardest part.
Oh, well, for me, I think all of us.
And often as an athlete, it is like, just suck it up, like grit and bear it, like just push through.
Yeah, the injuries, pain, emotional pain.
Yeah, like you're not allowed to, like, that's all weakness. Like, so you can't be like, talking about this stuff. And what's nice, I think, there's social media is a whole thing, but what's nice about it is some of these professional athletes are getting a platform to speak to this side of things. And that kind of empowers a lot of youth, a lot of athletes to recognize that, like, there is more to sport than just the accolades, just the medals. And yeah, it's really nice that we can actually hear that this is reality and then, do something about it. That's the second hardest part, is that, it's nice that we're getting to hear more of it. It's hard to say whether it's because it's more common or just because we have more of a platform to do it. But then it's okay, like, now we all kind of like hear that and we get it and we get that there's an importance to it. Now we have to actually do it. And that can be a hard part.
If you're listening to How Would You Rate Your Pain, you're probably a person who understands the power of talking through the issues that we're going through. I'm really excited to let you know about BetterHelp, an online therapy platform. I'm not one of their therapists, but very thankful they sponsor this show. Wherever you are, BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist who can listen and help you through whatever you're going through. It's flexible and entirely online. Listeners of the show can get started with 10% off the first month by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to betterhelp.com/Tiffany Bartell. Yeah, well, and it's hard to I know as a therapist, when I've worked with like adolescents, it's hard to be working on something and making progress when the environment isn't supporting the progress and giving the same messages. And I think, if you think about like movies and TV shows that have had athletes, there's always that phrase, get your head in the game, get your head in the game. And I think, I remember Tom Brady came out, it was many years ago, and said that he was working with a psychologist to help him because that was the part where he wanted to be strong too. And as a therapist, I was like, what? Like, you have no idea like how much permission that gives people to say like, I'm going to be anxious or I'm going to be sad sometimes or whatever. And my brain is just another part of my body. So it all works together. And I think bringing the mindfulness and compassion into it means that we're not trying to muscle under our mind to make our body do what we want it to do or what other people's expectations are. But it's like, well, I want my mind to feel good, just like I want my body to feel strong. And because I'm worth it, I deserve to live at ease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a hard thing to tell an athlete who's just been told like or yelled at like, focus, relax. Like, you're being yelled at to relax. It's like, I don't know what that means.
A little counterintuitive. Yeah.
But yeah, to be giving, I think it actually speaks more volumes. Like we were talking earlier, me and you, just about how helpful it is to kind of see the data behind some things, about, like proving how valuable and important this is and impactful, and how necessary. But we really latch on when there are professional athletes who speak to it, who really like show that like, hey, like I'm performing at the highest level possible.
Yeah.
And there's still a part of me that like doesn't feel complete or it could be better.
Yeah.
And there's this whole mental training paradigm in sport where for, the longest time, everyone gets that like, the mental side of sport is important. There are plenty of quotes where it's just like, that's, the 110% or something. And yet we don't often intentionally spend time on that because it's hard. it's hard to measure. It's hard to see it in action. We have all this anecdotal evidence in these stories, and that's what we latch on to. But really what I in the True Athlete Project try to do is give the how on that.
The practical steps, because it can be very vague of just like, I don't know, be nice to yourself, or be less anxious, or that relax, you know, or calm down.
Matters.
What does that look like, and how do I do it? And then, you know, making sure that it's a movement, not just a one-on-one thing, so that they're getting that positive, you know, reinforcement around them, and they don't feel like they're gonna struggle. I remember I was teaching a class for a friend. It was an undergrad psychology class, and we were talking about this idea of like self-compassion. And I asked them, I said, how many of you feel like if you were kind to yourself when you're struggling, you know, how many of you feel like it would actually make you perform poorer in school? And almost everybody raised their hands. Like, we have this like idea that like, if I was nice to myself, then I would be lazy and I would just stop doing things. When really we know that that's the opposite of what's true. One of my favorite mindfulness gurus, Christopher Germer, has a saying. He says, we don't practice mindfulness to stop or prevent suffering. We practice it because we're suffering. And, you know, the human experience is so varied and difficult. And then you add on to it performing at really high levels in any area of life. And that effort recovery model, you know, we have to, if we're putting out more effort, we have to have more resources and more kindness and more rest and recovery. But we don't really live like that in America.
Yeah. The mindfulness in sport feels very obvious.
Yeah.
But I think it has kind of become this buzzword along with mental health at times, where when people hear it, they're like, oh, you're just here to talk about like that, you know, woo-woo stuff again.
Right. Be nice to yourself.
So we try to make it as real as possible. And oftentimes I even avoid the word mental health or mindfulness and really just not make them, but get them to a place where they feel it. Right. And with sport, it becomes blindingly obvious. You need to have some focus, some clarity, awareness of your surroundings to be able to like perform at your best, to understand what's happening, to be able to have enough clarity of mind to make the decisions that you need to make, that you know you need to make, and not be, you know, lost in the distractions or the things that are out of your control. And that's where mindfulness comes to play. And it doesn't have to be, you know, this informal practices. The informal practices become very simple. It's like, hey, just take a couple deep breaths here. Just take some time to recognize and name what's happening in your mind right now. You don't have to be comfortable with it, but it is telling you something that maybe you can react to, and that's where your power lies.
I love that. Yeah, so you're almost making it just like another skill that helps them to excel, not just in the thing they're doing, but as people. Because I mean, I think all of us benefit in our relationships, in whatever job we're in, from taking a beat and like slowing things down and checking in and being like, okay, what part of me is reacting to what's taking place? And is that the part that needs to be active right now? Because our brains are so good at telling us we're in danger, but it, you know, the danger can be subjective.
Yeah, exactly. Such a good way to put it.
It's the point, right? Is that like you want to work with your brain and have a chance to like fact check, you know, is the information I'm being given in this moment actionable, or like, you know, just kind of a blip. You know?
And it becomes like, this is what we're talking about with how sports can teach us the life lessons. Is this often becomes the hook in sport, where it's like, this is how we're talking about it in this way because of you as a performer and an athlete, and this is how it will translate into your performance and your interaction with others. But by giving you these kind of skills that, you know, in sport there are so many opportunities. Like anger is a big one. Everyone has a story of it. They know when that has happened for them. They have the example they can pull up. If they're able to recognize in their body that is coming up, because they have some awareness of like, when I get angry, my body does this, or this is what thought turns up, or this is kind of how my
cue.
These are the cues that I'm recognizing. Then of course that's going to translate in every other facet of life, right? Oh, I'm with my partner now, and we're getting into a discussion that's turning into an argument. I start to feel this in my body again. That's telling me something. And now I maybe have a couple of skills that help me get that clarity and control back, and then operate in a way that I would like to.
Yeah. I what I'm hearing is that, like, you know, mindfulness gives you a choice Whereas so many times, we'll hear people talk about something, whether it's an altercation in sports or it's an altercation in the world, and it's like, I wasn't my best self. I didn't stop to think, I just acted. And it can feel very like disempowering and almost helpless, to hear those things of just like, I couldn't control myself. And it's like, yeah, like, because you didn't have a choice. You just went purely on that instinctual, information. So I'm really curious, what got you into like being so passionate about mental health and athleticism?
Yeah, it's a question I've asked myself, actually, because I've just kind of like fallen into this over the years.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily raised as an athlete as a kid. That's not to say that I didn't have opportunities for lots of other things. Yeah. Like, I chose a lot of other things and, music and education and stuff that like kept my interest for sure. But I wasn't pushed into athletics by my parents. And then I found that in college, I started playing ultimate frisbee. And I was like, man, I'm actually pretty good at this. And I'm like, really fast. I can jump pretty high. Like, I might actually be an athlete. I didn't even call myself an athlete until after college. And because I just didn't see myself that way. But I think I was lucky. Ultimate Frisbee has a great culture in general that really helped me kind of integrate into the sports world in a pretty healthy way. So that's where I've done a lot of my learning. I coached Ultimate Frisbee for maybe 12 years in different places.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about how to coach and how to raise individuals and get teams to work together. And all of that has translated into other facets of life. And through that time, I was coaching at UTC. I listened to a podcast where a sports psychologist was on. I was like, what is this? I've never heard of sports psychology before.
Yeah.
And I was well into my coaching career at this point. But I was like, this is what I do. Like, this is what I love. This whole mental side of sport and like looking at the whole person. So I went and got my master's in sports psychology.
Wow.
And, I started kind of working on building my own business, which I do still have, called Orca Fitness in Chattanooga, mostly one-on-one with young athletes. But during that time, sports psychology, there's kind of a traditional sports psychology, which is really based in the mental skills approach.
Okay.
And it's like, hey, we're going to come in and teach you how to do these things with self-talk and focus and goal setting. And it felt really like paperworky and textbooky, and I never really quite resonated.
Like formulaic. Yeah.
And I couldn't quite figure out why it didn't resonate with me as much. And as I kept doing more of the work and hearing more, listening to more podcasts, watching more whatever, reading more books, I realized that it's like, no, what I really like is almost more of the counseling piece, where it's like we get to know this person, understand what makes them tick and how they're motivated, what's been going on in their past or right now that influences how they operate.
Yeah.
And, all of that is describing mental health anyway.
Right.
So I started seeking in supplement to this business, just work in mental health. And I kind of popped around to different places, worked for a nonprofit that was teaching mental health in schools, and then went over to Head Start to be a mental health specialist, working with like the really little kids. Found that kind of across the board, mental health is the same for everybody, no matter the age, and the things that impact us, in all areas, how all that translates to sport. And it was just kismet that I ended up working for the HWYRYP project. I got connected with them as I was coaching at Macaulay, because the founder is from here, then took it to the UK, but I just came in a really good time.
Yeah.
Learned about the HWYRYP project and just kept saying yes to work and partnerships. Was doing some contract work until it eventually led to a place where it was like, hey, do you want this role as head of US programming? And now we're here. And I actually remember as I was going through my master's program reading about the HWYRYP project in one of my books. And when I had the opportunity to do some work for them, I was like, I feel like I recognize that name.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool road that like, they could have started anywhere. Yeah. I could have like gone however many different directions. And I don't want to lose sight of the gratitude that I have for that journey that kind of got me here over 12, 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what does, 2 questions, what would you like to see the True Athlete Project do here in Chattanooga, and then on a bigger scale in the US?
Mm-hmm. So one of the unique things that we do in the U.S. with the True Athlete Project is we have a contract with one of the local high schools.
Okay.
That was really kind of open-ended. It's like, hey, come in and see what we can do. So we've been kind of building the program over the last couple of years as to what that could look like, which is a mix of coach workshops, because, I mean, coaches are so vital to what a culture looks like.
Yeah.
And, you know, they need to know their impact and their role. Yeah, they set the culture in a big way. So working with the coaches is usually a great point of access. And we're doing kind of a captain's cohort there as well.
Oh, nice.
Because in the same way,
leaders.
The leaders on the team, oftentimes the other teammates are looking at you, whether you know it or not. So how you hold yourself, how you react to things, that really has a knockoff effect in a pretty big way too. Yeah. And then looking at the program vision in general of the school and how the rest of the school, because these aren't just athletes, that's the whole point. They're students as well. Yeah. So who they are in the school, what kind of pride they have for the school, and then kind of supplemental work with teams, kind of facilitations coming in and doing some check-ins, anything that they want to work on basically. So all that to say, ideally we would like to create that model and then just keep replicating it. Because schools everywhere could use this.
Absolutely.
Get some grant funding to kind of put those into different schools locally and then expand it into different areas. And
I love that. Yeah, because, you know, when we think about the developmental age that you're working with, we know the risk is so high for mental health issues, especially here in Tennessee. You know, our youth are really struggling, and that's across the United States and the world. But thinking about, like, you know, getting in with this group and having the expertise to help them with something that's important to them, while helping them to, you know, develop this mindset and skills that they'll use for the whole rest of their life is exciting. Because I think we think a lot about college student mental health. And then, you know, as people getting into parenting or, you know, hitting whatever crisis they're hitting, you know, there's attention there. But I love the idea of getting into high schools and doing really concentrated work while that brain is still forming and developing. I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly the point is, you know, middle school and high school would be great.
Yeah.
And it's a great access point, sports in general, because you already do have this collection of people coming together for somewhat of a collective like mission. Yeah. And they are doing something inherently together. And there are all these lessons already built into it. So being able to be integrated and to help some of that along, because anything that we do honestly is very simple. It's just making the choice to do it. Right. Which becomes the hard part.
And practice.
In practice. And that's the whole mental training paradigm in general is once you know how to do it and it becomes integrated, it's less of this, like, now we're doing mental skills training. Now we're doing, like, physical training. It's like, no, it's all connected. And sports is a great place for that marriage to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone's listening and they would like the True Athlete Project to serve their team or their school, how can they get in touch with you?
You can reach me at neil@thetrueathleteproject.org or just go to the website, thetrueathleteproject.org. Quite active on Instagram as well. It'd be really cool. That's where you can find a lot of the different projects that we do because, that is just one very small piece of what the True Athlete Project does. We reach a lot of different communities in a lot of big ways.
That's so exciting. Well, I, as a parent, want to thank you for what you're doing for our kids in this community and the vision for the United States. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time. Be gentle with yourselves and check out the True Athlete Project and see if it is a resource that would be good for your community. We'll see you next time. How Would You Rate Your Pain is a pop media production and is recorded at Wavelength Studios in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our set is designed by Mad Honey Rentals, graphic design provided by Josh Wilhelm at JW Creates, music is by Michael Crosa. This podcast is not intended to be taken as medical advice and should not take the place of regular therapy. If you have questions about your mental health, see a licensed clinical therapist. I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at How Would You Rate Your Pain. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week for another episode.